All right, I am recording right now, and let's go ahead and get started. What we'll do today is we'll take a look at the hardening packages of Debian, and also clamp. So it depends on how much time we have. We may be able to cover both of those topics. We may be able to cover only one, but I think I'll go through clamp first because that's what we talked about last time. So let's go ahead and get started. Window here. Okay. Oh, this is the other class. Don't worry. Right. Okay. So here's ClampFS theory and applications. Basically, this is like the whole instruction already, of how to use ClampFS. Once we go through this, I will also give you the assignment to do it on your own so that you can use the virtual machine that you have and actually run through all of these steps to set up your own ClampFS portion. Okay, so we'll go ahead and talk about ClampFS here. ClampFS is unique to Unix and also Linux type operating system. It requires Fuse, F-U-S-E. I think this portion we talked about last time already. Do you guys remember whether we talked about this already last time?
Yes.
I think I did.
It was related to checksums.
No, this one has nothing to do with checksum. Yeah, this one is not about checksums. This one has to do with how to install and use ClampFS in a practical setting. So I don't think we went through this slide here, so we'll go ahead and get started with this slide here. In any type of Debian type distribution, so that would include Ubuntu and many other distributions, I think the naming of the packages are the same. So we can go ahead and install all of these packages. Some of these may be installed already and some may not be installed. On your virtual machine, you don't have to do it now. I will give you the instruction to do it later on. But on your virtual machine, you probably do not have Fuse, Utils, or ClampFS installed. But you can always try to install something that is already installed. Aptitude would just say it's already installed, there's nothing to do. So there's really no harm in doing that. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to show you the command of how to install the packages. This is not in the notes, but it's always a good idea before you install anything to run aptitude update. What this command does is it will contact the upstream servers to re-download the latest and greatest catalogs from all of the repositories. So this way your own repository that is local is up to date. So this is usually the best thing to do is to run it first. It typically does not take a whole lot of time because these are all kind of relatively small files. If you do this every time you sign in as root, it shouldn't take much time at all. So I'm gonna let it go through this.
Is sudo apt-get install update equivalent to aptitude update?
Say again?
Is sudo apt-get
Yep, it's the same thing.
Okay.
Aptitude is kind of like a it's kind of like apt-get on steroid. I will show you guys why it is really kind of useful later on today in this class. Okay, so in this case apparently I have not run this for a long time, and it's having issues. Well, it has a lot of packets that are out of date. So I have 444 packages that can be updated. 492 packages are new since the last time I do the update. I'm not going to do it here, but the next thing you want to do is to do an aptitude save upgrade, because what update does is it will only download the catalogs. Okay, it will only update what are the latest version of each package, but it does not necessarily download or install anything. Okay, it's just saying, okay, a new version is available now, but it doesn't actually download or install the latest version. What upgrade does is to actually download anything that has a newer version. It will download and install it. And what save upgrade does is to make sure that it doesn't cause any conflicts. So it's really the best thing to do when you want to update your system. Are there any questions at this point about how to do the usual management of your distribution? So assuming that you have run this already, then you can go ahead and try to install the packages that we were talking about. The first one is clamfs. Second one is I think it's views utils, and then the last one is file. You can combine all the names of the packages that you want to install onto the same line. As long as it is after install, it is okay. So let me see if it will work here. And in this case, there's nothing to do, because with this live distribution, I have all of these installed already. And then views utils, okay, yeah, there's nothing to install because they're already installed. All of those are already installed. So in this system, I'm ready to go. Okay, on your virtual machine, if you set it up the way that we have talked about so far, some of these packages are not installed yet. So when you run aptitude install, it will give you some slightly different results because they are not installed yet. Okay. So next slide, set up group membership. Root can set up clamfs anywhere in the system. However, as a Fuse-based file system, clamfs also permits end user to create their own clamfs or mount points for clamfs. This is a really neat feature, so that each end user can determine which part of his or her home folder requires a on-demand virus scanning mechanism. In order to let an end user create his or her own clamfs folder, the user account must be added to the two groups. One is called Fuse, and the other one is called clamav. Okay, so what we need to do now is to still log in as root. We want to add the regular user. In this case, it's just named user. In your case, it is the username that starts with a W and then your 7-digit student ID. So what we would need to do now is to say add user. In this case, my username is just regular user, and I want to add this user to the group called Fuse, and then I want to add user to the other group is called clamav. Okay, so you can see that the command to do that is just add user. But in this case, because I'm using add user with a username and also a group name, it doesn't create the user. All it does is to add this member to the group Fuse and also the group clamav in this case. Are there any questions about the command add user? No questions? Okay. Now remember, once you add group membership, it doesn't take effect immediately in the same shell that you are using. Okay, so one way to do this, I think in one of the homework assignments, there's a command that somebody discovered to do all this. I think it's called exec dash something login. Nope, that doesn't work. Trying to remember how to do that. Okay, maybe I'll just go ahead and from here log in. Okay, let's do it all here. Tab, exec, login, shell. Dash L. Nope, that didn't work either. I have to go through my own notes to find out. Not GPG. Do you guys remember whether it's this one? I think it is this one. In one of the questions, there is the and I can't remember which one. there we go. So it is su-l. Okay, got it. Exec su-l user. There we go. All right. So this time, after I, quote unquote, sign in again using this particular command, the group ownership should be effective now. Okay. So the only way, well, not the only way, but one way we can tell whether it's working or not is to follow through the instructions to do it. So we have set up the group ownership now, and let's move on to the next one. Okay, set up mount points. Okay, so setting up a mount point means we want to basically designate a particular folder for ClamFS to work. So in this case, we have to create a folder if you want to do it. If you want to do it that way. Just reading my notes here. One can configure the entire home folder to be a ClamFS directory, but that means every time you access any file within your home folder, the Clam antivirus scanner will scan the files. So that may or may not be what you need to do. So instead of doing that, what we can do is to set up a particular folder, just using mkdir or make directory. So in this case, this instruction will create a kind of like a hidden folder called customs to do it. So in this case, I use the command called mkdir, and then just dot customs. That will create a folder that normally does not get displayed because it starts with a single dot. ClamFS configures a mirror folder for a real directory that represents the same content, only it is scanned. As a result, the user needs to create an empty folder for this purpose. So in this case, I have to create another folder that is the scanned folder. One folder is the unscanned one, the other one is the scanned version. So in this case, the scanned version is customs. So I'm going to say mkdir customs, like that. Okay. So I have two folders. So remember, you have to do the same thing too when you do your homework assignment. You need to have one folder that is actually used to store the files without getting scanned, and then the other one is when you access files in the other folder, the second one, the files will be scanned before they are accessed. So in this case, dot customs, because it's hidden, will store the files that is not scanned when you access it, and then the other one, which is without a dot in front, will store the files that will be scanned when you try to access them.
Does it remove the files from the non-scanned after scanning?
Nope, it does not remove anything. It only controls whether you can access it or not. So it's not destructive. It does not move any files to quarantine. All it does is to whether allow you to access the file or not. The next step will actually, this is one of the commands to do it. In this case, we have an XML file that you need in order to do the configuration. So this will create a ClamFS XML file. And what an XML file is it's basically a container, and we can use it to contain just about anything. You can use it to contain an entire document, which is basically what the new document formats are all about. Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, they're all basically XML files, except they're compressed. But in this case, this is a fairly simple file. Let's go ahead and do this step first, and then we'll take a look at the XML file. So I'll do exactly that command here. Gunzip is kind of like unzip in Windows, except it only applies to gzip formats. It does not apply to the usual zip format. So what this does is it will decompress a file. The file is in user share doc clamfs and then clamfs dash sample xml.gz. The -c option, this one here, right after gunzip, the -c option means the output will go to the standard output, which allows me to use the redirect symbol to redirect it to a particular file. So this basically will just create my own file called clamfs.xml in the root folder. The reason why I know it's in the root folder is because of the tilde symbol. Okay, so it's all done. The next thing we need to do is to take a look inside this file. Okay, so we'll take a look inside this file here. And this is what an XML file looks like. It is just a regular text file. It has a structure to it. It uses the angle bracket to define the elements or the tags. So here we have the open tag of clamfs, which is the top level tag. And then when you go all the way to the bottom, there's an end tag corresponding to clamfs. When you see a slash, in front of clamfs, it is closing an earlier tag that opened this particular construct. It is not unlike HTML, because HTML is kind of based on the XML specification. Except in this case, it's not designed to be displayed by a browser. It is just here to specify configuration content. Does everybody know how to use at least one of the two editors that are built into Linux, either Nano or VI? Okay, if you guys want me to kind of quickly go over one of these two, Nano is the easier one to learn because it doesn't have a lot of the learning curve is a lot shallower with Nano. Now with Nano, it has built-in help also, because when you look at the bottom of the screen, when you see the caret symbol here and then the R, that means when you press Control R, it will read a file. When you want to exit, you want to do a Control X, that will get you out of the editor. If you want to save the file, do a Control O instead. If you want to find out additional commands of how to use this particular editor, type Control G, and that will display additional help. So the caret, by convention, just means control, and then you just say Control G, Control O, and so on. Okay. But I'm used to VI, so I'm just going to use VI for this purpose. Okay. The default settings should work for most situations. There are only two lines you need to change. One is here, so you want to change the socket to this part here, and then you want to change the other one, which is the root, to the exact place where we just created earlier, and then you also want to specify the mount point to be the exact mount point of where we just set up. So these are the only two lines that you need to modify. So let's go back to the editor and locate those two lines in our case and change those. In VI, to find a particular line is easy because you can type slash, which starts a search. Okay, so if I press just / here, you can see that my prompt went from the top portion of the editor to the bottom part here, and it displays just a single slash. It means it is ready to accept a specification of what I'm searching for. So in this case, I'm searching for greater than, less than, and then clamd, and right here, it was right in front of me the whole time, except in this case I can see it here. So we'll change this one to /var/run and /clamav/clamd.ctl. Okay. Now before we move on any further, instead of just typing all these things, let me just kind of explain what a socket is and why we have to specify that particular socket. I'm going to open another tab in my shell here, and I'll just go ahead and do a ls-ld to that particular file. A socket in this case is a file. In this case, it is in /var/run/clamav/clamd. Oh, it's not there yet. So that means it has not started yet. That's okay, because we haven't really actually started clamfs. We have not configured clamfs to run with this user yet, so that's why it's not there yet. But basically, what a socket is it's a communication point. It's a flagpole, so that a server application or server program can say, if you want to talk to me, this is where I am. Okay, so in this case, the quote-unquote where I am, the location, is in the form of a file, okay, a path to a particular file. You have already used sockets a lot of times already, because every time you type in a URL, you are actually quote unquote specifying a socket. Power.arc.losreals.edu with a implicit port 80, that is also considered a socket, except that socket exists on the network. In this case, this socket is basically, it appears as a file. It is still a mechanism that allows client processes to talk to a single server process. Okay. So we'll get this one done, and then the next one is file system root, and we'll go ahead and configure exactly the same way as the instruction here. And what I can do is to scroll this one up a little bit, then I can move my editor down here so we can see both at the same time. So now we have /home/user/.customs. This is the folder that is containing the original file with no restrictions of how you want to access the files. So this is not protected. Okay, if you access files from this folder, it is not protected. Yep.
Aren't we typing in the comments right now since we're in the main?
You are absolutely right. Yep, you are correct. I forgot about that part. What he was mentioning is because I'm typing inside the less than exclamation point dash dash. That's considered the comment section of an XML file. So you are absolutely right. I forgot about that. So let's go ahead and find it's right here. Okay, it's already specified. Okay, this part is outside of the commented section. So now we can specify this root here. Okay, so this is the part that we can modify. So we can specify the root to be local to this particular folder, and then the mount point to be same thing, /home/user/customs without a dot. We can remove public equals yes, because we do want to make sure that my files stays local within my folder. Okay. So are there any questions at this point about what to modify in the file, in the configuration file? Questions? Okay. Now you can't have multiple ClamFS XML files, so that is the only way you can implement multiple folders to be protected by ClamFS in this case. So once the configuration file is edited, we can now run the following command, which is clamfs.xml. The first part is the actual command. Okay. This part is the actual command, and the second one is really just specifying which configuration file to use in order to start the command. And you can do this as an end user. You do not need to be root to run this. So let's go ahead and get out of the file, get out of the editor, and then we specify the configuration file. And it's complaining about cannot connect to clamd, it's not started yet. Okay, all right. So what we need to do first is to start clam AV as a daemon. So I need to change the root first. Clam AV daemon start. All right, it is started. This is a typical command to start a daemon in Debian or Debian-like distributions. The script will exist in /etc/init.d, and then the name here is clamav-daemon. This is the name of the process that is acting as the antivirus entry point. And then you have to give it a command. So you can give it a command like start, or stop, or restart, or status, or reload. Okay, most daemons accept those particular commands. In this case, I just wanted to start because it has not started yet. Now, once this is started, the socket that we were talking about earlier, it should exist now. So we'll go to /var/run/clamav and do an ls, and you can see it is now here. Remember this file? So it is now here. Now if you do a ls-l on that particular file, it will also give you some quote-unquote additional information, because it will tell you this is not a regular file. Okay, if you look at this entry, in ls, it is a little bit not different from all of the other ls entries. The first part that is different is instead of a dash or a D, it starts with a lowercase s. That means this is not a regular file, it is a socket. Okay, because in terms of operating system programming, a socket is kind of like a file, but it is not really a file. So that's why there's a special flag to indicate this is a socket. The other parts are pretty much the same. We have read, write, dash, execute for the owner, the user owner of this particular file, which is clamav. We also have read, write, dash, for the group owner of this particular file, which is clamav as well. But this time it's clamav as a group, and I just added myself as a member to that group. So that means I should be able to use this particular socket at this point. But that apparently is not even needed, because even others have read-write access to this socket. So I probably do not even need to set up myself as a member of clamav at this point. Okay. All right. So this command is now successful, and we can try again to restart to start clamfs, and this time it's working perfectly. Okay. There's no error message. It just says scan cache initialized 16,000 entries will be kept for 1 million milliseconds max. What that means is it's maintaining a cache so that files do not need to be rescanned over and over again. If you access a file twice within like 5 seconds, it will just be cached. It won't be rescanned again and again. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
So if you wanted to have your downloads file, your browser downloads folder working with Clam, and your USB mount point, you need to have 2 instances of ClamFS running.
Right. And you will have to have 2 XML files, one corresponding to your browser and one corresponding to your USB mount point.
So you would just make that part of the script when you plug a USB.
You can make that a part of a script. You will have to mess around with udev, because that part is responsible for controlling what to do when a particular device is plugged in. I have not investigated a whole lot into that portion, but I know it has to be able to. You should be able to do it. But you might.
You could do something simple, right? Like they use FS tab to say I want it always to mount to this dot media mount point or something, but ClamFS would copy it over to a visible folder if you access the file.
You might need to have root access to write some scripts at that level in order to make it more automatic. Because the mount point of a plug-in device like a USB thumb drive is kind of predetermined. So we know how it mounts something. So what you want to do is to hide the original mount point,
Right.
and make the ClamFS scan mount point visible to the end user. So that might take some extra work to make it automatic. If you don't mind typing some commands every single time, it's not too difficult to do. It's just that it's going to be a little bit cumbersome, because you will have to run those commands every single time you plug in an external drive. Okay, so now that this is working, quote unquote working, what we'll do is we'll do some really simple stuff. Okay, so what we'll do is we are going to create a single file, an empty file. We'll just call that test.txt in .customs, which is the one that is non-protected. And then what we want to do is to look at customs, which is supposed to be the one that is protected, and you can see that file is over there as well. Okay, that's because whatever file is in .customs should also appear in customs without the dot. Except when you try to access the one in customs, it will be scanned before you get access to it. Now in this case, it should not be a problem. Okay, I should be able to do a cat in the file. I should be able to cat the file in customs, because test.txt is just an empty file, no big deal. Okay, so I can access the file just normally for any type of regular file. So how do we test whether this works or not? Okay, there's no easy way to tell because mount-o bind would do about the same thing. Okay, all you're doing is to map a folder and make it quote unquote reappear the same way in some other mount point. So what we want to do is to test it. And to test it, you have to create a file that has the signature of a virus, so that ClamAV can identify and say, hey, this file has a problem. You should not be able to open it. Okay. The file is located here. It's called EICAR, E-I-C-A-R. I don't know how to exactly pronounce it. Does anyone know? Nope. Okay. So what I'll do is I'm going to copy this URL here. Now this is another trick that can be useful, especially when you use command lines a lot. So what I'll do is I'll right-click on this one and say copy link address. I'm not even downloading here. I'm just copying the link address. And then what I'll do is I'll change my current folder to .customs, which is the place where the files are not protected. Okay, so I'll put it here. And the way I do it here is to use wget. Okay, wget along with there's another one kind of like it too. I cannot remember the other one, the name of the other one. But wget stands for webget. You can consider this quote unquote as a command line web browser. Okay, all it does is to grab the file that you designate, next to it, using HTTP, as a protocol, and by default using port 80. You can specify some other ports. For instance, if LCAR, has a special port for this kind of file, like let's say port 8080, you can specify .org:8080. Then you can also, just about any URL you can normally use in a browser would also work with this command. Now it doesn't seem to be very useful, except for, oh, okay, we are saving a few commands here because we don't have to copy the file over. You can look into wget, the man page for wget, and you will find that wget can be quite useful. You can essentially slurp an entire website and store it locally on your local folder if you specify the recursive command or recursive switch of wget. So it can be quite useful for various purposes. Okay, so now I'm getting this file here. So let's go ahead and see if I can play with this one. Any questions at this point?
Is that file actually a virus?
No, it is not. But it does contain a test signature that should be caught by any antivirus program. But the file itself is not. It does not have an active virus. It doesn't really do anything. But it has a signature that all virus checkers should check. It's basically designed as a test file for any type of antivirus program. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and try to access the file from here. Okay. One command I can run to basically just to identify what kind of a file it is called a file command itself. So if I say file and then I can say test.txt, it probably will come back and say it doesn't know what it is because it's an empty file, right? Okay, that makes sense. And this time I'll test the other file, which is EICAR com2.zip, and it says it's a zip archive data at least 1.0 to extract, which means it requires zip 1.0 to extract the content. That's perfectly fine. Okay, we have identified what kind of file we have here. The next thing we'll do is we'll switch to customs without the dot. This one is supposed to be protected. I can do a file on test.txt. It should come back as just an empty file, no problem. And then we can test it on the other one, and it says it's writable, regular file, no read permission. What is happening here? That means I can overwrite this file, but I cannot read it. It's because ClamAV has done the work behind the scenes and checked whether the file is quote-unquote infected. And because it is quote-unquote infected, but this is a signature file designed to test your antivirus programs. So since it is quote-unquote infected, it's not letting me read or execute a file. So by removing the read permission and also the execute permission, this file is essentially, it cannot be activated, it cannot do a single thing. Is that?
If you gotta look at the file in the dot customs first, it would have had a read
Yep.
and execute flag.
Yep, exactly. Well, not execute because all files that you download, do not automatically have the executable. But we can certainly, unzip it first and see what happens because it's just a regular file. So what we'll do is we'll go back to .customs, which means it is not protected, and we'll go ahead and unzip that file. So we'll go ahead and unzip this file, which creates a another .zip file. And then we can unzip the other .zip file. It should create a .com file, which is a small executable in DOS environments. So it does create an icar.com, and if I do a file on it, it should correctly identify this is a command in DOS. Okay, it correctly even identified this is a virus test file. Smartass. Because I was hoping that it would just report and say this is a DOS command file, but no, it went one step ahead and say this is a virus test file. Okay, great. Okay, now if I switch back to the other one, which is customs, without the period ahead of me, I have exactly the same files. But if I try to do any file command on the .com file, it says regular file, no read permission. If I do it on the one that has a zip extension, same thing. And if I do it on the original .zip file, same thing. Now, if I do a ls-l, it's not obvious, okay? Because it says these files are still rewritable by a user, but when you actually try to access it, that's not the case. I cannot run it at all. Are there any questions about this part?
You're still capable of going into the hidden folder though and accidentally opening the file and breaking things, right?
Yes, you can. Yep, you certainly can. If you get to the hidden folder, then there's no protection because it's just a regular directory in that case. Yep.
I just noticed Chromium actually will block it. I didn't think that Chromium actually does that.
Well, that's why I use wget, because wget is fairly dumb. It doesn't know what it's doing. Well, it doesn't know what it's downloading. It just let you download whatever you want to. Okay. But this is ClamFS at work. Okay. The scanning is done on demand. It doesn't do all the scanning. It just scan whatever file you are accessing right at the time you access it. You try to access it. So it doesn't chew up a lot of processing time. It just it's really kind of efficient in terms of how much time it uses to do this. Now the other thing that I'm kind of curious, which I'm not exactly curious, but I know what it's going to do already, is to run clam scan on this folder. So when I do a clam scan dot, it should scan the current folder. Okay, I forgot to specify -R for recursive. No, it did scan the 3 files, and it found the signatures. So you can see that. Okay, there we go. So on all 3 files, even the zipped one, it found the test signature. So this is the output of clam scan when it does correctly identify a file is infected or has a signature that matches an entry in the database. Are there any questions about clam AV, clam scan, or clam FS?
Yeah.
Oh,
I was wondering, I've scanned PDFs before where it said it detected JavaScript within it. I was wondering, is that probably a big signal that it's probably not a good thing?
using clam scan?
Yeah. I think it detected the there because it detected that there's something about JavaScript that's embedded in it.
Okay, the first question is, are PDFs supposed to contain JavaScript?
I think the interactive ones, they can.
Okay. So maybe that's not, maybe it would just be, it should be a warning and not really a, like an error or an alarm, because it's just basically telling you that, this particular PDF file contains, active code. So if it is activated, if you open the file, it can potentially do something, but may not be something that is harmful, but it definitely has the logic to do something as opposed to a regular PDF, which just renders something on the screen and that's it. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Is the development of ClamAV pretty current? Do they release new?
Yes, it is.
frequently?
Yeah, ClamAV itself is current, but it is still not as good as the commercial scanners. If you look at ClamAV, just look it up. ClamAV.net is the homepage of ClamAV. It is active. I mean, they are constantly updating the database. New signatures are added, on a regular basis. But it is not as a scanner. For whatever reason, it is not as reliable as the commercial ones. You can also look at comparison ClamAV, and that should give you well, these are not exactly established tests, but you can kind of go through some of these links and find out how good ClamAV is. As far as I'm concerned, it is okay. I mean, it's good enough for.
Better than nothing.
It's better than nothing, and it is up to date. I mean, it does have a database that is up to date. You can. I'm trying to locate folders. I mean, articles that has a kind of more of a fair comparison. Well, this review, kind of said that ClamAV is actually pretty good. Okay, so we are talking about detection rate. ClamAV is
The last one.
it
Second one.
second last? It's still 0%.
Well, I think it's comparing a lot of them against actively running virus scanners, which probably doesn't help, right?
I haven't read the actual detail of this article, so I'm not really sure how it is all set up. So you might want to kind of check out the reviews. If you really plan to roll it out on commercial or exposed systems, you might want to check it out first. So any other questions? Okay. What antivirus do you guys run? I mean, especially for those of you who run Linux or Ubuntu or Debian. Nothing.
Using Clam. Using Clam.
You're using Clam?
I'm gonna be modifying it.
I typically don't run any real antivirus programs. I do run the hardening tools on my server and also on my client system, but typically I don't run any antivirus on my systems. I think it has to do with whether the user knows not to go to certain websites and turn off certain features. That has a lot to do with how secure your system is. My kids' computers and my wife's computer constantly get stuff, even though I have antivirus programs already installed on those particular systems.
Are they running Linux? Are they running Linux?
No, they refuse. They refuse to run Linux, because they want to use Windows, programs. I tried my best, to convert them to use Linux, but no, they wouldn't. They do not want it. All right. So getting back to here. So that's pretty much it. I mean, this is a quick and easy test to show you guys how to use ClamFS. Okay, this is the other thing. ClamFS doesn't start automatically. So what you need to do is to basically do something to get it started automatically. There has to be slightly better ways to do this. But what I do is I write a script in Perl, and then I attach this Perl script to bash rc. so that every time I log in, this script will run.
What's the script do?
Well, let's check it out. Okay, so this is a Perl script. These two lines are basically just saying, complain as much as possible. Okay, because if the interpreter complains a lot, it helps to catch my own mistakes. These two are really just setting up the folder and also the XML file. And this command says, if the folder does not exist, just exit and complain about the mount point does not exist yet. This one complains, if the XML configuration file does not exist, it will just complain the XML configuration file does not exist, and it will just quit. So assuming both the directory and the XML file both exist, then it will see if it is already mounted. In other words, I can run this script like 20 gazillion times, and except for the first time it runs, the other ones will just check and say, hey, it is already mounted. There's nothing to do. Okay, so it doesn't run into errors like that. So in the case that it is already mounted, it will just say that it is already mounted for this particular directory. Otherwise, it will run it, and there's a slight issue here because when I copied and pasted the command, this is supposed to be backtick and not forward tick. It's supposed to be the key shift, not shift. It's supposed to be the upper left-hand corner of your keyboard, the backtick or the backquote symbol. But when I converted it into HTML document, it somehow used the other one. Maybe that's actually a backtick character. But basically, this is a Perl script, that starts clamfs to run, with a particular folder and using a particular XML configuration file. And then once we have this file created, I just specify that command and put it into tilde slash in my home folder .bashrc, which is a startup file. Every time bash starts, that file runs. So assuming bash is my shell, this will guarantee that every time I start the shell, it will run that particular file, which is probably really excessive, because every time I do a new tab, it will run it. But it's not harmful because I check whether it's already mounted. So if it's already mounted, no harm done. There has to be another way to do it, for when the user logs in, but I have not figured out where to attach that point. Any other questions? No other questions? Cron tab is the other possibility to use cron, because cron allows you to attach a script only when the system starts up. So that will only run when your system starts up. So that's one way to do it.
You do a bash profile and it would only run the first time you logged in instead of bash RC.
Yep, I think that's a better way to do it. Is to attach it to profile instead of RC. Now this script does not unmount the clamfs directory even when the user logs out. So if you want to be able to to detach the clamfs mount point, then you have to do some extra work to make that happen. But I usually don't log out once I log in, so it's not a big issue for me. Any other questions? Okay, no other questions. Move on. Set up Mozilla products and use clamfs. It's really just changing the Mozilla folder to a different folder, and then use clamfs to create the actual Mozilla folder. So this way, this is replacing customs without a dot, and this is basically dot customs. So every time you access anything related to the browser, it's automatically scanned.
Just don't use the downloads button in your browser, because then you would be clicking the unprotected one, right? Like in Google, in Chrome, there's the thing up top that says it basically shows you your recent downloads.
Right.
If you were to access one of those, you'd be looking at the unprotected version, right?
It depends on where you put it. Okay, let me go back to my browser configuration here.
So there, the downloads.
If you set up your downloads to be in your downloads folder and you map and you do a clamfs on downloads folder, then you're still protected. So you will need to set it up so that all the download files can only go to one particular folder first, and then you grab stuff from that folder.
But if you click on downloads 2/3 of the way down, so if you access your downloads folder from the browser, you're going to be looking at the one that the browser's mapped to, which would be the unprotected version, correct?
Right, but you
So
can
all
change
those
that.
would be- So if you clicked on one of those right now, you would be clicking the unprotected.
Yeah, because it's in the downloads folder. But you can make this a mount point for clamfs. So the trick to do it is to rename this one to, let's say, your .downloads or some really obscure name that most people would not click on, and then use clamfs to to mirror this as the actual downloads folder.
But that screen that you're looking at right now is, when you look at the downloads in the browser, you're looking at the folder that the browser originally downloaded the file to, correct?
Correct. But I can okay. So let's go ahead and do this exercise. Okay. So what I'll do is I am going to probably a better idea to close the browser first, but I think I can probably do it without, as long as I don't do anything in the browser. Okay, so what I'll do is I'm going to move downloads as a folder name to, let's say, dot downloads not protected. Okay, so I'm not moving any actual files. I'm just renaming the folder into a hidden name, with warnings, built into the name saying, okay, these are not protected. Okay, and then I'm going to create a new XML file so that I can run clamfs the second time on this mount point. So I'm going to copy clamfs to clamfs dot downloads.xml and edit that one. Alright, so the root in this case is going to be downloads underscore not protected, and then the mount point is going to be the usual place where I put my downloads. Is that okay? Alright. I do need to create the new downloads folder first, to create a mount point itself, because the mount point has to be a folder that is already existing. And now I can run clamfs and then use the new XML file to configure it. So now, if I go to this downloads, this is already scanned when I open it. So it's working okay. The real test is to put the lcar file over here, and then see if it will complain about it. So we can do that pretty easily. So we'll just copy it from .customs. There's no way to copy it from customs, because once it is in customs and it is infected, it won't let me do anything with it except to overwrite it.
Well, can you go to it from the browser? Click it download it from the browser. So you have the link, your HTTP link. Can you download it from there? Because then it will automatically go in your downloads folder, correct?
Chrome will stop.
But yeah, exactly. Chrome is gonna stop it because Chrome has internal virus scanning ability. So that's why I have to kind of do it behind the scenes. And okay, iCard star to the unprotected version. Actually, I can copy to either one. To put files in is okay, but to get files out, may or may not be okay, depending on whether the file is protected or has problems. So I'll copy this to here, and then in my browser, let me see, open downloads folder, and I should have those files over here now. So I'll go ahead and double click on this zip file, and I don't have anything to open up a zip file. So if
You don't have Archive Manager?
Hmm?
You don't have Archive Manager installed?
Nope, probably not, since it's complaining. Well, if I try to create an archive, that would trigger a read operation too, and it doesn't let me do it. Well, okay, it says no archive manager found. Okay, here's another one. I'll do a copy and paste. So I'm just copying the file to someplace. So let's copy and paste it into the desktop. And it doesn't do it. It doesn't let me do it. In other words, if you have a file inside the scanned folder and you try to copy that out of that folder, it won't even let you copy it because the read permission is taken out. So that if you cannot read the file, you cannot copy it. Yep.
We'll also activate is before I actually try to open it and then turn off all the permissions. If I just try to move it, will it do the same thing?
Say it again?
Like when you initially try to open the file and then you turn off all the permissions, if you try to move it, will it do the same thing if you didn't try to open it first?
If you try to move it, that's a good question. I think you cannot move it either. That's a good question. Can we move it from inside the protected folder? My guess is not.
Oh, before you actually activate it though. Like
Before I
it activates
activate
it,
ClampFS?
Yeah, before.
Before you activate ClampFS, the files would not even appear in the other folder.
Oh, gotcha.
Because it will just be in the unprotected folder, but the protected folder itself is going to be an empty folder. There should be nothing there. Right. So, are there any questions about ClamFS and how to actually apply it in real life, like mapping your downloads folder so that it is protected? Any questions? Now, I would also do it to the cache folder because the cache folder is the other one that needs to be protected. All right.
So cache, downloads, and maybe those are the main ones.
Yep. So basically, I just kind of showed you guys how to do all of these steps, except the older steps apply to Firefox and Mozilla, but you can do the same thing to Chrome. Once you locate where it put all the download files, it's the same. It's the same thing. All right. Well, that's the end of ClamFS. Are there any questions about any of the steps or the concepts of today's lecture, regarding ClamFS? We're not done yet. We still have some more stuff to do today. No questions? Okay. If there are no questions about ClamFS, we'll move on to hardening. So we'll go ahead and close the slides that we don't actually need. And I'm not sure. Oh, okay. It's not. It's still hidden. I'm sorry about that. I forgot to make it available. So let me change the settings first, then you guys can read it also. Go. All right, you should be able to access it now. It's called Harden. It's under topic 3. Okay, so Harden is a group of packages. There are multiple packages that can help to quote unquote harden a system. To harden a system is really to make it more secure. So it is less prone to malicious attacks. It doesn't really stop completely. There's no guarantee that once you harden the system, it becomes super secure and no one can crack your system. It simply means that you have taken some measures to make your system slightly more secure. Okay, it's better than doing nothing for sure. But there's no guarantee either. By doing all these steps, your system becomes 100% secure. Instead of just talking about it through the web page, what I really want to do is to show you what it looks like from Aptitude. Okay, so I'm going to run Aptitude as a command line program, and I'm going to run it without a particular command. Okay, let me just kind of quit and show you again. This is the command that I just ran. It's just Aptitude. You should run it as root. Okay, if you want to install packages, you have to run it as root. So I'm going to run it as root again, and it becomes interactive. Once it becomes interactive, it's really quite useful because what it allows you to do is to browse through different packages based on the name of the packages. And once you get to a particular package, it can also show you what that package is including. And I will also show you a website, or web pages that you can use to find out what exactly is included in a particular package. So in this case, I want to look for a package called Harden. And you can see that once I type / on the keyboard, it triggers the search command, and then I just have to type a portion of the name that I'm looking for. In fact, it can be a regular expression for those of you who understand what is a regular expression. So it allows you to search for things that are it's a really flexible way to look for things. Okay, look for packages. Once I find this, it highlights this particular line to basically say, okay, this is the first package that has harden as a part of the name. It shows me that the current version, or the version that I have access to, or the version in the catalog on this system is 0.1.38. It is not installed, and that's why you see none here, because that is reflecting which version is actually installed on this system. It is not installed yet. Now, if I press the Enter key, it shows me additional information about the hardened package. I just press the Enter key, and it shows me the full description. This package is intended to help the administrator to improve the security of the system, or at least make the host less susceptible. Okay, so it gives you a brief description, but when you scroll down, it gives you some additional information. For instance, in this case, it shows me that this particular package depends on 3 additional packages. It depends on devcon, which is always installed anyway. But the other 2 are also quote-unquote unsatisfied, which means they're just not installed at this point. The first one is hardened environment, and the second one is hardened servers. So if you want to install this one, okay, let me just kind of press Q. Q allows you to go back to the previous level in aptitude. So lowercase q, let me go back to this level here. If I want to install harden, I just have to press the plus sign. So in this case, it's shift and then the equal symbol. If you press plus, it will automatically select the packages and say, okay, let's go ahead and install this. Are there any questions about the basic navigation? Now, in case you don't remember how to use aptitude in the interactive mode, one thing you can do is to press the question mark. Okay, so if you press the question mark, it will show you the online help for aptitude itself. You can scroll up, you can scroll down, you can use slash to look for certain words as well. Okay, so it's pretty handy. I find this help screen to be kind of terse at times, but for the most part, it is really useful. When you're done with the help screen, if you want to go back, guess which key you press? Q, exactly. Lowercase q will basically end the screen and let you go back to the previous one. So there are several packages related to harden. The first one is just harden itself. It will help you set up the harden-environment. It will also set up harden-servers. But this class is all about client programs. How come we are installing hardened servers? Well, the reason is most Linux distributions come with some servers, especially for file serving. Okay, and some of those is insecure. So you want to kind of install hardened-servers to make sure that none of the insecure servers is installed on the system. Let's take a look at hardened-servers and see what it is including. Okay, this one says avoid servers that are known to be insecure. Now, how can installing a package make sure that you don't have any insecure servers installed? Well, the trick is this. The trick is conflicts. Because what it is saying is hardened-servers is conflicting with 36 packages. In other words, you cannot have hardened-servers installed and any one of these installed at the same time. And that's why, if you have any one of these already installed, trying to install hardened-servers is going to cause a conflict, and the aptitude will basically say, well, cannot do it, and it will tell you exactly why you cannot do it. So this is one, kind of interesting way to make sure that you do not have any insecure servers installed, because any one of these is considered insecure, and on this particular system, it's a live system, and I don't have any one of these already installed. But you can see the long list, 36 of these are not supposed to be installed. Some of these they look fairly harmless. Port map, for instance, okay? A lot of Linux distributions has port map automatically installed because it supports NFS, which is a network file system originally developed by Sun Microsystems. Okay, that's basically the de facto network file system for Linux systems for a long time until Samba becomes more mature and more accepted. And that's usually installed, but it's not a secure protocol, or the server itself is not secure. So in most systems, you will actually see a conflict with port map. So you have to uninstall port map first before hardened dash servers can be installed. Are there any questions about this part? Yep. Okay. The other ones include, let me go to another one that is kind of like the mirror of hardened dash servers. It is hardened dash clients. If I put a plus sign here, you can see that we have a problem. Okay, I just press the plus sign on hardened dash clients, and it's giving me a problem because it is conflicting with telnet. Now, if I go into hardened dash clients, okay, my cursor is now on hardened dash clients, and then I press the enter key, it shows me the description, but it also shows me what it is conflicting with. In this case, there are only 5 programs that it conflicts with. The first one is FTP upload, then we have a GCJ web plugin, SVNC viewer, and telnet. Okay, so telnet, for whatever reason, is installed by default in this particular system, and if I uninstall telnet, then it will be okay. So this is basically a system to warn you about client programs that can potentially cause issues. Okay, are there any questions about this one?
So nothing's actually going to be installed other than saying this package is here because...
For this one, yes. But for some of the other packages, it would actually install something. I will show you what I mean by that next. Okay, so let's say we want to. Okay, if you don't want to install this, you can just press the minus sign to cancel the installation request. If I go to NIDS, okay, Network Intrusion Detection System, and press the enter key here, this one does install something. Okay. It depends on snort or ntop. In other words, this particular package will install one of these two. Ntop is the default, that's why it is listed first, but you can also manually select and say, I want snort instead of ntop, and either one will fulfill the requirement. And both can be installed too. Nothing says you can only install ntop or snort. You can install both of them. It's just saying that you need at least one of these installed to fulfill the requirement. It also comes with recommends. In this case, the only thing that it is recommending is log check, which means it does not need that. It doesn't need log check to be installed, but it is recommended. It is closely related to this particular package. I'm not going to talk about snort just yet, because there will be some additional slides that talk about snort. But I was just going to briefly go over the other ones. Hardened tools is interesting too. If you go into hardened tools, it has these suggestions. So none of these is actually required to be installed. GNU PG or GPG, we know already. Okay, we have a homework assignment on GPG right now. The next one is called John. John is named after John the Ripper. Okay, it is a password ripper. It's actually interesting. I have used it to identify dictionary words used as a password. But you do need access to the shadow password file in order for John to work. But nonetheless, it is a kind of interesting tool to kind of try to crack passwords of accounts on the system. Tiger is if you want to find out more about Tiger, one thing you can do is once the cursor is on it, just press the enter key. And then it shows you there's one single version available, and then you press that, it gets you to the Tiger page. So browsing inside Aptitude is nested. You can go down, you can drill down a few levels, and then when you press the Q key, it just backs you up one level at a time. This is a really nice way to kind of navigate through the packages and find out what package includes what else, and it's really just kind of handy that way. Now Tiger is interesting because Tiger is a set of Bourne shell scripts, C programs, and data files which are used to perform a security audit of different operating systems, Linux included obviously, and its purpose is to identify potential problems and suggest ways to fix it. So it is really kind of useful that way. So we'll have homework assignments related to all of these tools, or at least some of these tools. Some are really easy to use. For instance, John is really easy to use. Well, why don't I do that? I'll just go ahead and show you what to do with John because it's really easy. If you want to install John, just press the plus sign, and it will get it installed. Okay, and then press G to actually start the installation. I have new files that are updated, but I don't want to install all the updates yet at this point. And now it's downloading the file, and then after this it will install it. Here we go. Okay, so I have installed all of the files that I have selected a little bit earlier. Sash is not something that I have selected manually. It is included in one of the other packages. I cannot remember which one. Sash stands for stand-alone shell. Okay, now why is it useful? Why does it have anything to do with hardening a system? Bash is not standalone, which means Bash relies on a whole bunch of library files that are installed somewhere else in the system. If those library files are compromised, Bash itself cannot be trusted either. But Sash, on the other hand, is not linked with all of those dynamic libraries. It is standalone. This file can run by itself without any other additional files. So that makes it slightly more secure because you can compromise the library files like libc and whatnot, but that won't cause any problems with Sash because it is already done. It's done linking already. So there's no runtime linking. There's no runtime dependency on any other files.
Does that mean I have no tools either?
Hmm?
Does that mean I have none of the tools that have Bash?
Well, it has some tools. It's not intended as a replacement for Bash, but in case of emergency, it's a good shell to use. If you suspect something is compromised, you probably want to drop down to Sash instead of your usual Bash. Okay, but the intention is to show you guys how to use John at this point, and it's going to work because I have chosen a really weak password for the default user account. So you will be able to see what John is going to do. So you have to go to the /etc folder, and then you say John, and you give it the name of the shadow file, the shadow password file, and you just run it, and it says, well, right there, it's basically reporting the user account has a password of user. I think it's the other way around. The root password is ball, B-A-L-L, and for whatever reason, it's not able to find that password, even though it's a very short dictionary word. It's not able to find that word, at least not within a reasonable amount of time. Yep.
I think John by default doesn't use dictionary unless you specify one. I think John will just do brute force unless you specify dictionary.
That may be true. So let's see. Man, John. Look up dictionary. John can use a dictionary or some search pattern, as well as password file to check your password. It has its rules. I know that part. The rules are basically the first thing it checks is the name of the account itself. That's why it was able to find the user that quickly. Word list. There we go. So you can specify dash word list : and then give it a file. So if you have a long word list of popular words for passwords, it will go through that list.
Yeah, just make a file that's called encrypted ball, and you can actually write this.
Yep, we'll do exactly that. So we'll go ahead and create word list. Just put ball in here. Run John again, and I think I can't remember the option again. Password file, word list. dash word list colon file. Okay. John dash word list colon word list file and shadow. There we go. It just found my password ball because that's the word. But that's a really easy way to check it. Now, how do we get a list of most English and words of other type of other languages?
The internet.
Well, there's the internet. I think the dictionary files also has it. So if I go to, I have to do it again, and go to iSpell. So iSpell, correct spelling in plain text, and so on and so forth. But it has dictionary packages too. So I want to look for iSpell dash dictionary, and in here we have various files for different languages. So let's see if you can find English. Nope, it has Esperanto. I think words in Esperanto probably is the safest bet if you have to use a dictionary word, but it does have American, large, small, and so on. So I think these packages include a word list file, so you can basically feed the word list file from a dictionary into John, so that way you can locate all those words pretty quickly.
I think you also set specifications for what kind of permutations you want to do.
Yep. You can set the rules. You can set the rules for permutations. You can also set it up to run. There's a cron job corresponding to John, which means you can set it up to run periodically. You can set it up to use excess processing time only. So if your system is busy doing something else, it doesn't really chew up a lot of processing time. But when it's idling doing nothing, it will use up all that time to try to crack passwords. You can also set it up to send emails to the administrator when a password is cracked. So you can you will receive email like, okay, these users are using insecure passwords because John is able to crack them. It's interesting. It's definitely one of those kind of interesting utility programs. Yep.
Can you use the brute force like ABC? Can you use the brute force?
Can we use brute force?
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead and try it. So I will change the password of user to just ABC. There we go. And we will run John again, and this time without using the word list. So this time it's just using brute force. So John, shadow. Yep. I think using brute force is going to take a while.
It's the best thing. The brute force.
The brute force?
Yeah. Because if you say, for example, if you have English keyboard and you say in your language, for example, how you do it, just type on keyboard and nobody find out. So there's dictionaries.
And then the other thing about John is you can interrupt John and say I don't want it to run now, and then resume from where it left off last time. That is a really useful feature because if you need to shut down the system, I can type Control-C, and it says session aborted, but there's an option to resume it. And if I run,
What do you think about Hydra? It's HYDRA.
say again.
Hydra. It's HYDRA.
Hydra.
Yes.
Oh, that's another password cracking utility. Okay.
It's faster.
Okay. But you can also restore or continue an interrupted session because you can say John-restore. So that can come in handy. Let me see if Hydra is included here. Aptitude. Hydra. Lightweight, scriptable. Okay, that's not it. There you go. Hydra is a parallelized login cracker which supports numerous protocols to attack. It is fast, flexible, new modules are easy to add. There you go. Thank you. Thanks for the... once you locate a package, you can go back and see which package refers to this package. Okay, let me just kind of show you how to do that. So let's say we are dealing with Hydra here. Scroll down and until you find packages which depend on Hydra, and then we have Hydra-GDK that needs Hydra itself. So this is not even listed as a part of the hardening packages for strange reasons.
I used this program to recover my Gmail account. It has about 70 gigabytes dictionary, and it took about 2 days. So it took about 14 million passwords.
Wow. Now, were you using this on the Gmail account?
Yeah.
So you were trying to crack your own Gmail account password. Okay.
Would time out like
So that means it supports networking protocol. It
Yes.
supports HTTPS in order to launch
Also
the
have
attack.
SSL.
Okay. Well, we know SSL, now because of the hardware issue, right? So even without a cracker, some people can probably get your password. That is interesting. Were you using any dictionary words, or was it a
I
brute
used,
force?
16 gigabytes each.
Okay.
Or 70 passwords.
No, but your password itself, was it dictionary words? Was it a dictionary word, or was it just a
Yes,
composite?
it was about 11.
11?
11. Like ABC and some numbers.
Okay. Only 2 days, huh? Wow. That's nice. Good to know.
Try not to force anything over 8 characters. That'd be like insane though.
Right, but if you have a dictionary, that means fragments of things. So you're no longer looking at 11 characters, because the 11 characters is now logically broken up into, like, let's say 2 components or 3 components. So it makes it a lot easier to go through like lots and lots of entries. If you use 11 characters and they're all random, then it would take a much longer time, because now you cannot use the dictionary is not going to be helpful anymore. So that would be a true brute force approach. Now, when you launch an attack like this, on Google or Gmail, doesn't it block your IP address and say that you
Yeah, block my IP address.
Okay.
Because when you use the POP or SMTP protocol, for some reason they don't block.
They don't block. Interesting. Because I would assume that if you try to log into a certain account, like 5
Yes.
times, and
3 times. Yeah. I mean, Gmail I think 5 times.
5 times, but wouldn't Hydra trigger that too? Because if you try to
Yes, if you use SMTP or POP.
Oh, okay. Interesting. So you're not going through the web interface. You're
For some
using.
reason, if you take a look at Gmail account, it says turn on POP. By default, it's turned off. But for some reason, on Hydra, it still works.
Interesting.
Because the only other way to do this, effectively, is to launch the attack from many, many different computers. But that means you have to own a botnet first. Then you can parallelize the attack, from all the computers in a botnet. That will shorten the amount of time to maybe a few hours at the most.
Imagine
Alright.
if you try to log into an account with like 50 different computers, like it's gonna look a little suspicious too.
Yep. All right. Well, I'll see you guys next Tuesday.
I had a question
Yep.
about the next assignment, because I was looking on it